need to mute.
Oh boy.
Oh, you, sweetie. I think you unmuted me. Unmuted.
Hello. I didn't.
Okay. We're good now.
Okay.
You want to open?
So, seeing that it's 6:34 p.m., I will open this meeting of the Enfield Select Board joint meeting. Budget.
And seeing as it's 6:34 p.m., I open the meeting of the Budget Committee. Now, if we have someone online, do we need to do an oral?
Not to open the meeting, but for any motion.
Okay.
Go ahead, Shirley. She drives. It's a budget committee meeting.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to put the approval of the minutes on the table for consideration? So moved.
Second.
Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes?
So were you at that meeting? Yes? Yeah. Oh, okay. Because I looked back at the thing and it didn't look like Shirley was there.
What date was it?
No, it was May 28th. I thought you were.
Oh, no, I wasn't at that meeting.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I was in Tampa at a kindergarten graduation.
So that was, and then it also had Shirley.
It has me in there?
Yeah.
Yes, it has you as present, and then it has you, I think, on the adjournment, because it said Jim Fickett moved to adjourn at 7:47. Ms. Green seconded, but then the meeting was adjourned at 8:02, so I'm not sure what we did for
We can figure that
10
out.
minutes.
I'll leave.
The only other correction I had is under capital improvement. I believe, wasn't it Dan Kiley, not Dan Regan, that was,
Right.
okay.
Anybody else have any corrections or additions? Hear a motion to
Move to accept them.
to approve the amended meeting?
I move to accept them as corrected.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You got a roll call.
We need to do a roll call vote for this. We'll start with you, Dan.
Aye.
You name.
You want me to go? Jane Plumley, aye.
Shirley Green, I wasn't here.
Tampa Bay, aye.
Nancy Smith, aye.
Jill Banowski, aye. Tina Stearns, aye.
Jim Fickett, aye.
Kate Plumley, Stewart, I'll abstain as I was not here either. No, I'm the representative. Don't worry, I got you. It's confusing.
Okay. The first order of business is our school budget overview. And I believe do you have a presentation, Deb, or?
We sure do,
Yeah.
Ed. Could you pull up the second one I sent you, if you don't mind?
Yep, I'm looking.
Thank
for
you.
it.
Second email that sent recently.
You say, do you want a spot at the table? I'll give you a spot. I'll hug up to Alice.
And what do you
The little owl guy will catch you if you're closer.
Yeah. That's right. That's the owl. Oh, lucky you. Are you gonna run?
Yeah, I'll run this live.
All right.
Could we have you state your names, please?
Yeah,
for the-
that's what I was gonna have.
Sure. Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Isbell. I'm the superintendent of schools for the Mascoma Valley Regional School District. Here with the fabulous Deb Ford, who has prepared more budgets than I have. So she is by far the expert on the process. I will be happy to answer any questions on philosophy or planning or anything that she doesn't answer. So I am going to let Deb go ahead and start with the PowerPoint. And we'll move on from there with questions.
Yes, so I am Deborah Ford. I am the retired business administrator, supposedly retired business administrator from Mascoma. I'm doing consulting with a number of school districts now, including my favorite, Mascoma. So here I am.
Thank you for being here.
So this is, I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for, but this is an overview of the whole process that we do, and I believe it's fairly similar to what the town of Enfield is doing. So we're SB2 as well. So we have a deliberative session where people can come and ask questions and make amendments to the warrant articles. And then we have the vote, just like you do. So that's how that works. Next slide, please. So who represents our 5 towns? So there are 7 members of the Budget Committee and 7 members of the Select Board. And they're all elected at large, so you get to vote for everybody from each town. The school board votes on the budget, and they vote on all the warrant articles, but it's the Budget Committee's budget that goes to the voters. And it goes to a deliberative session for amendments, and then to the voters. Next slide. So the big picture, this is pretty much probably what you do as well. Identify the needs, you build the budget, the school board looks at it for priorities and financial sustainability, and the budget committee goes through it line by line, and they do make recommendations, or sometimes they make recommendations on lines to cut. The public process is the same thing. There's a public hearing in January, and that's where the school board votes on all the warrant articles, and the budget committee does as well, any warrant articles that are financial in nature. And then the vote, and then we implement and monitor. So next slide is how the process moves. So the administration prepares the budget reports, but the principals and all the department heads use our software. They put in their own budgets for everything except for salary and benefits, which the system puts that in for them. There's a joint final budget meeting in December for both the school board and the budget committee, and they finalize everything there in preparation for the public hearing in January. Then the deliberative session, and then the vote. Next slide, please. So, September and October actually is where all the planning goes through. So everybody at the table are all just like you do, the department heads, so it's facilities directors, also the curriculum director should be in this list as well. There are multiple meetings. We start with the principals and review all the staffing, and the special ed director and the staffing for that. The next meetings review other items that they're asking for in their budget. So Enfield and Canaan, when we present those budgets together, because we're looking, the budget committee is looking for equity between those 2 schools, and that is a priority for them. What is reviewed? So obviously students and enrollment, that's a big thing, and then salaries and benefits. So typically when we have classes that are smaller, like this year I think 2nd grade has 88 students, but 3rd grade only has 64 students. So we're constantly moving teachers around as we need them. And if we do need to cut a position, which we have done in the last few years, we've cut positions because of the decline in enrollment. We do it through attrition. So we never, I don't think we've ever missed anybody. We have not. So operations, transportation, utilities, and technology. So all of these things, we have contracts. Everything has a contract. Anything that's $10,000 or more has to go out for bid. So we're constantly getting bids on different things that we're doing. The facilities and safety, the good thing about that, and one way we keep our budget pretty level, is anything over $25,000 has to go in the CIP. And the reason we have a CIP is because of Lee Courier, because he came and talked to us and we set it up at that point in time. but that really helps us. We don't have big increases in the budget for anything like that because it comes out of the CIP. And as you know, the CIP is a working document. It's always changing depending on what we need. Instruction, obviously that's the curriculum director, and the schools are all over that. And then compliance, a lot of that really has to do with special education. And special education is probably the biggest variable that we have because we don't know. We're budgeting in October and November for the following July. And people move in, people move out. So you really don't know what you have. And the way we used to do the SPED budget is we'd always budget for potential placements. That was back when they were only like 50,000, not 500,000. But now, because we have a capital reserve fund that has a decent balance in it, I think 792,000, we have that if we need it. So we can just budget for what we actually know at that point in time. So that's what we do there. And then there is a strategic plan that you could talk to if anybody was interested. I see you have your own here. Next slide, please, Ed. So the staffing is definitely the biggest expense. I mean, it's, with salary and benefits, it's just under 70% of our total budget. And that, it was surprisingly, with the health insurance increase of 26%.
Yep.
For the year we're in, we managed to cut enough things to cover that. And then the budget was only 0.96, 1% increase. The health and dental, we're fortunate, well, and unfortunate. We have school care, and you probably read about school care and all the school districts getting a huge bill at the end of the year. Well, luckily, we had retained under the 5% rule, $650,000, which covered the $634,000 bill that we received. So we were able to pay that. But also with school care, we have the actual rates that we're going to be paying next year in November. So we can include the actual in our budget, and that's been really helpful. So I'm still a school care proponent. I could go on, but I won't. Next slide, please. So October to December, this is when the budget committee meets. So they meet every 2 weeks. They go through Canaan Enfield schools 1 week. 2 weeks later, they do Indian River School and the high school, and then they do special ed budget and the SAU and district-wide. So those meetings, they go through line by line. I mean, if you've looked at our annual report, you know, the budget, it's like 1,600 lines. You know, they go through every line. They're good people. So each school, they come and present their budget. The budget committee asks all the questions, probably just like you do. What else I want to say about that? And the school board also is invited to those meetings so that we're just presenting the information one time. Everybody hears the same thing. And then as far as the reporting, the minutes go to the school board just like they go to the budget committee. So everybody, if they're not there, they can at least read what was discussed. The budget committee, like I said, they can vote on items to take out or to increase. I know they've increased some lines previously, which is surprising. And they're looking for equity in programs too. So they're looking at, I mean, Mascoma is a big sports district, right? I mean, sports is a big thing at Mascoma. But they look for equity so that we're also doing arts and music and theater the same. So trying to put money into both those areas, because a lot of times those are different students. So the public hearings in January, where they vote on the financial warrant articles. The new thing this year, and Amanda and I just listened to the webinar with Drummond Woodson yesterday, which was really fun, on HB 564. So what that is we have to pull out the SAU central office budget as a separate budget and a separate warrant article, and it can only be increased by 6%. And the other thing that you probably know, because it's going to go on your warrant in November, is the state, what's the other bill? HB 1300. So this one is going to make it so you can vote on whether we should have a tax cap. And well, it was confusing, but it's 1 plus the CPI, so it's like 3.6%. So that'll be interesting. But they're mandating that every town put that on their warrant. And then we have to take all 5 towns and combine the results. And it has to be 2/3 to pass. Anyways, crazy things that are coming up in public education, which we love. I think that's, yeah, so the next slide, Ed, is just a deliberative session. And I did want to say about this that we have no negotiated agreements this year. And that's how we get people to come to that a lot of times. If it's the teachers, we tell the teachers, you want to raise, come. And the same with the support staff. But we don't have one this year, so we'll be telling people just to come to support the budget. But it's always concerning when we don't have a negotiated agreement on the warrant. All right, and then the next slide is after the vote. So as far as monitoring, the school board receives monthly financials. So budget to actual reports so that we can see where we are. Managing, all of our expenditures require purchase orders prior to a purchase. And we really enforce that. The purchase orders go through the principal first, and then or the department head, and then they're all approved by the business administrator before they go out. Unexpected costs or changes, so having the capital reserves is really important for us for facilities and special ed, like I said. But, you know, sometimes things come up where something breaks and then we have to fix it. So then we just don't spend the money out of another line. And that's how we've always kind of managed to have some money left at year end, too. I think, I don't know Michelle's final number, but I think it'll be similar to last year. The credit to the towns will be just under $500,000, which sounds like a lot until you think it's like 3% of our budget. So it's pretty tight budgeting that we do. Last slide, I think, is the next one. Yes, and we are transparent. If nothing else, we are transparent. We do not hide anything. You know, one of the reasons I'm still helping out there is this is my town, and I want everything to be right. So this is what we do. We're focused on the students. I mean, it's very student focused, and we're fiscally responsible, and we are, yeah, I think we're responsible to the community. Anything you want to add, Amanda?
Sure, I think Deb hit on a couple of very important pieces. I always start when I introduce myself to the budget committee in our first budget meeting. I always start with saying, we are preparing what we need for kids while keeping in mind our fiscal responsibility to the members of this district. I often get both sides, right? This is a fine dance for us in the school district. We balance you all. Thank you, thank you. You are overwhelming supporters of our education and our schools, and I thank you for that. I think you can see that where Enfield Village School now ranks as one of the top 2. So when we compare the wealth in our community to the reading and math scores, we rank number 2 in the state, soon to be number 1. So that support is helpful. That support is helpful. I balance you all, is this recorded?
Yeah. Yes.
With, I'll be careful on the new laws about electioneering then. I balance you all with other communities in this district that are not so wealthy and come at me for, you're spending too much, cut this. Here's a warrant article that says what your proficiency scores can be, if you were at the deliberative session and saw that. So I have to walk that line, dance that dance to make sure that I am giving our kids what we need. Inevitably, somebody on the Enfield, in one of the Enfield budget seats says, you need more money for that, Amanda. And I say yes to some, and I have to say, unfortunately, I don't to others. So thank you for your support. And that's really where we come from in trying to make sure that we represent the needs of all of our kids and the financial constraints of each of our different towns. We have seen declining enrollment, as has the rest of the state, right? There are just fewer kids being born. I often get the question, are you going to close one of the elementary schools? And my answer is often, That's a job for your next superintendent. Because I don't believe in it. I believe that it hurts a town, right? Schools are the heart and soul of a lot of towns. They are the kids that go to the senior center. They are the kids, you know, that represent you as sports teams. All of those things to me are very important. When I look at the trend in our enrollment, when I was the principal at the Canaan Elementary School over a decade ago, we had over 300 kids. We're down to about 240-ish.
Wow.
So there has been a decline. In that decline in enrollment, we have cut teaching positions by attrition. So when people retire, we just didn't fill their spots. That has followed. So you would think about at each grade level, I might have 3 teachers, right? Because I'd have 20, 40, 60 kids in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, no, down. Because after that, they go to the middle school. Right now, enrollment-wise, at each elementary school, I get between 35 and 40 kids consistently. So our numbers are holding steady at the elementary level, which means my numbers now at the Indian River School are also holding steady. So those 2 schools are holding steady. Enrollment-wise, I think it's very reasonable to run a school that runs between 220 and 240 kids. So that's my philosophy on that. And I hope that is a belief of the towns, that they continue to do that when your next superintendent arrives, which hopefully isn't for a little bit. So those things are very important. And the last thing I want to say is that Deb is correct on this HB 1300, this forced tax cap, right? A lot of schools had warrant articles, or school districts had warrant articles, petitioned warrant articles that would force in a tax cap. Let me tell you about some school districts that have tax caps. Franklin, struggling. Concord, struggling. Newfound, struggling. All these places with these tax caps are struggling and asking their voters to exceed them, and that's a whole extra process. The tax cap question goes purposefully out in November rather than on our ballot in the spring. It reads the language, and it reads that it will not impact classroom learning. Thank you.
That's hilarious.
Because there is no way that I can, so if our teachers get a raise, that balanced with whatever the tax cap ends up being, I will certainly exceed that, right? So if I have to exceed the tax cap because of insurance or teacher salary increases or some other negotiated piece that I have to adhere to, that means there's nothing else for me to do but cut personnel. And that impacts kids. So this is keep my personal opinion, I'm only giving facts. This is something that people need to really pay attention to, and to understand that the language sounds very, very good, but there is no way that if we are locked in at a certain percentage increase, that it won't necessarily impact classroom kids. So. Yep, a very tricky one. So we'll be doing a public hearing. The school board will do a public hearing on that. We will get out as much information, because I am allowed to give out information. I am not allowed to persuade anyone in their vote, but I am allowed to give out that information. And we will try to educate the public as best we can. So that's a little bit of the philosophy, right? Trying to keep everything balanced to make sure that our kids are getting what they need. And like I said, inevitably, someone on the budget committee will say to me, Amanda, you need more, that's not enough. And I will, usually it's the Enfield reps that are on me for that. And I appreciate that, and I do appreciate that support.
So were there any other questions as far as, you know, what you were looking for?
Oh, and I just had a question about, is the homeschooling and like the whole tax impact also, is that affecting our enrollment, do you think?
Yes, I would say we have
Absolutely.
a healthy group of people that, it's not necessarily, there's the educational freedom accounts. We saw when those were passed and, you know, allocated out to people, that's when I saw a large increase. So homeschoolers, the homeschool population, we have a lot of homeschool kids that come and play sports or take band or take a language or come in for PE class if you're in the elementary school. Those people have remained steady. But when the educational freedom accounts, the EFAs came out, we did see a large migration of people that decided that that was the way they would go.
How many?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I could tell you that our number at least doubled.
So if they take that money, which we as taxpayers pay, we also get to pay for them to come and do programs too. So we're essentially paying for them twice.
So the new legislation that just went out,
that-
yes.
Okay.
The new legislation, we used to be able to charge the EFA people because they were taking the money, right? And now we can no longer do that.
Get out your wallet, you guys.
You have a question, Nick?
Yeah,
It's a double dip.
early in last budget year, I met with the chair and vice chair of the school budget committee to see how you, your budget committee functioned. And was told that you use zero-based funding, or zero-based budgeting. Is that correct still?
Yeah, we use zero base, but obviously we know what we have for staff and we know what their next step is. And our software we just roll it to the new year. So, but then we're looking at staffing at what we need at each school. So, I mean, basically it is zero-based budgeting, but we use the software to get everything into the budget. But yes, yeah, that's the philosophy, is zero-based budgeting. Right, because just because we had $5,000 in this line last year doesn't mean we need it next year. We look at what we really need.
Let's say we do the same thing on the town side. We look at every single line and we put comments and justify what the expenditure is at each line.
Any other questions?
Just a quick thing. It's like hearing a mirror for what the town's process is, to be honest. One small suggestion, I recommend that someone independent of yourself in all likelihood go to the town deliberative session, as that will be on the town's ballot this year.
Oh, that's great. I'm always there.
Could we put an action item to ourselves when we are putting out the newsletter the month before they do their presentation, make sure we get their presentation into the newsletter so that people have an opportunity to hear their, because it impacts all of us and it's going on to the same. It'd be a great spot for it.
Yeah, and I'd just open that up too. Send us any bigger information like that you have, and we'll make sure it goes out in our newsletter and on any electronic media that we send out.
I appreciate that. Who should I send that to, Ed? Is it you?
You can send it to
Perfect.
me and I'll get it to the right person.
Thank you.
Other Nancy. You don't want it.
I had one question. Sorry, Dan.
No, please go ahead.
Regarding the doubling of the people taking advantage of the homeschooling, do you have any sense anecdotally what their concerns are and why they're going that way as opposed to stay in the public schools?
Sometimes they will share with me that, maybe they felt like it just wasn't the right fit. I do think we have some people that homeschool that do an excellent, excellent job. I'm in contact with one of those moms and she's trying to help me get kids to play boys soccer because my numbers are a little low. So I do feel like we have some people that it just fits their family very, very well and it's the right thing for that kid. Do I think that there are families out there that thought the $7,000 looked really tempting, so they were going to keep their 3 kids home and get $21,000 and take a trip to Disney? Yes, I do think that also happens.
Okay, so those are kind of 2 extremes, maybe?
Yes, those would be 2 extremes.
So do you have any sense of what just the middling kind
They
of?
do not have to give me a reason as to why they're homeschooling. I get very limited information, basically name, rank, serial number, and that's all they have to provide me, and I am not allowed to check in or ask any further
You're not?
questions.
Okay, that was my next question.
I'm not.
There's no oversight.
They're trying to
No,
eliminate that as well.
I can add that because my son was homeschooled, but I didn't take the money. It was our choice, and I felt like it wasn't right to take it back from the school. But the state of New Hampshire is very horrible about it. Like, my son has super high functioning autism, so it's better. He went to an academy that was master-based learning versus a regular public school, but anyway, you enroll, I went to school, I talked to Amanda, I enrolled him, and there's 0 check-in.
Yeah.
They don't know whether they ever graduated, they don't know whether, until my son ended up graduating a year and a half early, and I sent the state the information, and they were like, oh, yeah, thanks. They weren't even tracking it, this and that. And so that's, and I can tell you from my previous job, I'm retired now, that we were, when this law passed, and I know a lot of people said this was the extreme, but we were dealing, all of a sudden we had a really big uptick of dealing with juveniles that had no supervision during the day, and when you're like, well, why aren't you at school? And they're like, homeschool. Okay.
Did Dan have his hand up? Yeah, Dan?
Yep,
No question?
Amanda and Deb, thank you very much. Really appreciate it, and thanks for everything you're doing for our kids. 2 quick questions for you. Number 1 is, will school care hold our increase next year to a max of 5%? And then the second question is, how far in advance of your deliberative session can we get a draft of your budget?
So I don't think they'll hold it to 5%. Did you get that number from somewhere?
It sounded like last year they held it to 5% because you had a school care.
26% increase last year, plus the additional 643,000. But in fairness to them, they had given us, what did we calculate?
Over $1 million.
More than that. Probably about 3 million over the last 20 years, because the Secretary of State said they could not retain only so much money because of the type of organization they are. So they kind of shot themselves in the foot by returning all this money to us all this time. So, yeah.
Okay.
And then your other question?
Yeah, how far in advance of your deliberative session can we get a draft budget? What's realistic?
The public hearing.
Public
In
hearing, okay.
January.
All right. Good deal. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I just want to make a statement about the homeschooling. 2 experiences I had when I was teaching at the high school. I had one student who never did her work, came to class occasionally, and so she was failing. I offered to help her after school or whatever, and no, but she wanted to play basketball. So her mother pulled her, put her in homeschooling, and she can now play basketball. Okay? And that's not that unusual. And I had another one who's a similar type of thing, but I remember it was Patrick Henry said, came down, signed the paperwork for homeschooling, and then says to him, what's homeschooling anyways? And I don't think those are unusual. So it's a real variety, a breadth of reasons. And sometimes it's simply they don't want to work in the system, so they get out of the system.
The education freedom accounts, where are they going? Do you know?
Where the kids go?
Are they
It's-
contracting with Lebanon? Or are
They
going-
probably are not going to another public school, but I do believe now they can be used to go to a private school, so they could be used as part of tuition for private school, or for parents to simply educate their kids at home.
So you can have a check just written to you.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I get
it's-
that. I thought there was a difference between
Yeah.
homeschooling and education.
There used to be a very clear difference. The homeschool, community had a really good base and was really working on that. And then these EFA people came along, and it really was like they were collecting a check, sort of became the philosophy of some of it.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come
Thank you.
tonight.
Thank you so much.
It was very thorough and very
good.
beneficial.
Thanks a lot.
We look forward to the tax cut.
And
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
as the grandfather of 2 girls in Enfield, you guys are great.
Well, thank you. We're pretty proud of us too. We'll have some exciting news coming out soon. I can't tell now, but we've got some more exciting Enfield news coming out, so. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
What do you think? What do you think? The chances of dragging a chair? Because if I give it to him and it's bad, that looks really bad.
It'll be on video.
Exactly.
Sorry I was late.
So the next thing on the agenda is a strategic plan overview. I believe you're going to introduce that.
Yeah, I'll talk through a little bit as I did at the CIP committee the other day. I'll kind of go through the process that we used to come up with this, talk about it a little bit, then I'll turn it over to the select board to talk about their strategic plan a little bit, just kind of what they thought moving through this and where we're at. But the overall process was a little bit different this time. If you guys remember, in 2024, we hired a consultant to come in and we ran through a strategic retreat day. We put a bunch of information together and went back and forth with the select board to write, I'm going to call it our first strategic plan. I know we had strategic governance before that. That was a little bit more department led on what their strategy was, but this one was directed down from the select board. So it was last year actually, but going through my eval process, we had a discussion that we wanted to revamp the strategic plan, go back through it. I know during budget committee last year, we were talking about bringing back some new strategic plan information. So going into this summer, a little bit out of running out of time, but I think it ended up working out for the best. I created individual select board workbooks. These workbooks were almost 50 pages and they were about 150 questions, leading through all the stuff you'd normally do in a strategic process. So what are your core values, strengths, weaknesses, the whole SWOT, pestle analysis, and then some different things just to lead, where are you thinking, where do you think the town of Enfield needs to go? From that, I brought those workbooks back together and integrated them into a single document that we took to the retreat. The one really big thing I think that came out of this that was kind of unplanned was we really got each individual select board member's individual thoughts. We weren't sitting at a table and having groupthink or the more extroverted person was dominating the conversation. Everybody got to answer every question. And I think that was really good. So we put together a kind of a little bit of a strategic plan document with the different answers on there. Like I said, we went through mission, vision, core values, then there's strategic priorities and initiatives that break those down a little bit more. And then coming out of that, I was going to have the department heads all meet and we were going to put some projects behind those. And then the workbooks worked so well, I did the same thing at the department level and I sent workbooks to the department, gave them some places to put some different projects and things in to meet these initiatives. And then I also encouraged them two things. One was to knock the barriers down. Don't think budget, don't think logistics. What is going to help your department support these initiatives? What do you think the best thing for the town is? Of course, when we come back through the budget and CIP process, barriers are going to get in the way and we'll do what we need to do there. But I really feel if they limit themselves when they're thinking, then we may not find a really good project that we might actually be able to make happen. So it's a great project there. And then I also encourage them to put projects down for other departments if they thought of something. So it wasn't just stay in your lane. It was, if you think public safety can do something right here that's really great, I don't care if you're in the finance department or DPW or wherever, write it down, and then we're going to be coming together in the next week or so to discuss all of these. So that's kind of where we're at. I've gotten their workbooks back. I put it all together. When we got done with the retreat on the select board side, I spent some time putting together the actual strategic plan draft that you guys have gotten. That's went to the select board once now for basic review to make sure that they were in favor that this is what we talked about. We may be doing a little bit of grammar tweaking and moving around, but I think overall it's pretty close to what you have. The other thing that really is a little bit different here, not that we didn't incorporate the last one into our process, but I'm going to start trying to build a lot more of a robust cyclical process where the departments will do their evals. Part of those evals will be kind of a time work management type thing of what are my people doing? What are they not being able to get done? Do we have spare time somewhere? That's probably not going to happen much, but what do we have and what are we doing in each of these positions, and giving those employees time to say, if I really had a little more time, I could do this, or if you shifted my job description a little bit, I could get this done instead of this. And so we'll start looking through that of course, we'll be going through budget, CIP, those things, and then we'll go into, work plans for each department. So what I'm kind of hoping, we're in the beginning phase, but as we come out of budget season, we'll be starting to have that talk again about CIP and work plans for the next year and kind of preparing for the budget cycle. So when we get every piece in place, it'll keep moving. The other change that I'm going to make coming out of this is our town report forever has had reports from the departments, and it's been I call it a one-page fluffy memo of what they did. And I'm going to try to change those so they're a little more data-centric and people start seeing, here's DPW, we have this many employees, this many FTEs, this is what our fleet looks like, here's how many culverts we clean, this is how many street miles we take care of, those types of things. And then we can put a little fluffy paragraph in there if we want. But I think having a little more data is going to give the voters and people what they really need to know about our department. So we're going to start moving in that direction. With that, let me see my notes. I think it's pretty obvious on the budget committee that as projects move forward, one of the things I'm going to do is if there's something out of the ordinary that we're putting in the budget, that we'll make sure that it has some sort of strategic tie back to the strategic plan. So I don't have there's a little bit of a addendum in your packet, but not the full one or the right ones in there. But if you look at those, it'll be like 1.5 or 1.2, and we can label that in the comments or something for a project that we do, so it ties back and you know where it goes to. With that, yeah, we'll just be looking for those moving through. I don't want to get too much into our new software right now, but we are really pushing that like we talked about, the zero-based budget, that the departments put the comments in there that state, we used 3,500 gallons of fuel last year, and we're estimating this cost for next year, and this is how we came up with that number. So you guys have a little bit more data there, and if we need more data as we move through, we'll get that for you. But that was really the strategic planning process and kind of where we're at, and I'll turn it over to Alice and the board to talk about.
Yeah, I think, I just have two brief comments. The strategic planning process that we went through this year was incredibly thorough, and I've been part of a lot of strategic planning processes, and I think the workbooks done alone really encouraged us to think creatively and independently, which I think is something that, and the second part of what I wanted to say was I was grateful to Ed for encouraging the department heads to be creative, because I think that in, not just this year, but in upcoming years, if I'm thinking forward and thinking strategically, we're going to be facing challenges like we haven't before. And I think it's going to take, not all of our resources are going to be financial. And so I think that we're going to have to encourage creative thinking to meet these challenges in ways that we can afford and that are sustainable. Oh, sorry, one more thing that I wanted to say. So Ed has also been doing a really good job tying all of the conversations that we have and all of the decisions that we've been making back to the strategic priorities. So I would encourage that, exactly what you just said, with the request from the departments as well and expenditures. It is so helpful for me as a select board member and as a decision maker to be reminded of okay, so this is the lens that I should look at this through when I'm weighing this decision. It's really, really helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I think the strategic planning gives us a direction in which we need to go, and a direction that we all agreed on too. Mm-hmm. And also fleshes out the budgeting process, or helps to define the budgeting process more clearly. Mm-hmm. So we're not just sort of playing it by ear.
And I think it's important for everyone to know, well, the packet sounded very long. The hours and it took basically probably around 4 hours, I would say, depending if you did multiple sessions and the completeness. So you could get 2 to 4 hours into this. And so the amount of time as a body of work that's in it for each of us is substantial. It was not like a Mad Lib where you fill in like, right? It was much more. And am I complaining? Because I think it was really important.
Well, I was complaining at the time, but I'm very
Well, yeah, no, I kind of was like, I mean, there was like, is there anything you changed? And I'm like, some of this was repetitive. But I think some of it's repetitive because you want to know whether it's really, are you repeating it because you really want to do it? So looking at it in different ways. I thought what was really interesting was, even though we individually did this, all 5 of us, we have a lot of very much the same priorities, and I felt like we were able to spend more time, because we did this process in this way, refining our language and how we wanted to do that high level approach instead of trying to come up with the ideas. So we got a lot more out of our retreat because we had already done all of the pre-work.
Well, and I think a lot of that, I'm going to speak for people probably, but I think a lot of that came out of, since I've been in Enfield, and it started before with the master planning, there's such an open public process, and there's so many times that we talk to the public about what they want. I think it showed that the board's been listening, and they understand not only where the community wants to go, but where the community needs to go. And together, seeing the answers very similar through most of the books, I think it was very evident. And then I was, when I pushed send, a little bit nervous. I was like, this is a lot of work. Let's see the pushback I get.
I mean, I definitely went back to Ed and said, I'm not sure I can finish this on time. And I don't think I'm the only one. I just realized we're still casting. Not that it's gonna, but when the video goes up, they're gonna not be able to see us as well. Yeah. It's not the end of the world.
Can I ask a question? Or am I?
Yeah, I don't know who's driving. Great.
You guys can drive.
It's your meeting too.
You can.
Excuse me for being, I'm just trying to track, and I was like, what issues do you see coming that aren't financial? Just because I'm not seeing, so I'm just curious. Or I'm not saying I don't see them, I'm just not tracking, I want to be on the same page.
Challenges.
Yeah, the challenges you said that that you think we're gonna face as a town that are not like in a financial aspect of it. Like,
So I think that we are going to face financial challenges, and
Sure.
I think we're going to have to think creatively about the resources that we're going to bring to bear.
Gotcha,
Because I think
okay.
that the resources that we're going to bring to bear are not going to be
Okay,
financial.
now I'm tracking, my brain didn't click over when
Yeah,
the way it said it, so thank you.
You know, but in a broader sense, yeah, I think we're going to have challenges that are beyond financial coming up in the future. But I don't think that that's for a broad discussion tonight.
We talked a lot about talent acquisition and keeping talent, right, which, yes, is financial in some parts, but there are other ways to attract and retain talent. We talked about things that we have all talked about a lot, like stormwater damage, right, and, yes, you can put some financial resources into it. Some of it, you're putting in some talent and some advanced planning, and we talked about the energy and what energy and utilities are going to look like for us. So I think those are all things that, there are some financial components, but there are creative ways you can deal with them where you aren't just throwing money at a problem constantly.
Yeah. And decisions that will affect the growth and
Absolutely.
Keeping a balance.
Who do we want
I
to
saw
attract to
that.
town?
Yeah, I saw that a lot in there, and it's great.
And some of the most significant challenges we face come from Concord.
Yes.
And that,
We play a lot of defense.
I'd leave out the word some and simply say the most significant challenges we face do come from Concord,
yeah, I agree.
without a question.
And, that becomes financial, political, all sorts of
The
complications.
unfunded mandates are.
Well, I appreciate that, just for some reason when you said it.
But as was mentioned
Hit the wall.
by a couple of the others earlier, one of the things that came out of it was a genuine strength of consensus among the board for what we consider to be the budget priorities, to what we consider the priorities of the strategic plan. It was a huge consensus. So for those that disagree, you have to look at 5. You can't look at 1, because it's not one person that pitched any particular thought or wanted any particular plan to go a particular way. It was all 5 of us that were headed in the same direction and really felt the strength of the group to produce the strategic plan and the budget priorities that you have on a separate letter as well. Yes, primarily financial, of course, as far as the budget committee is concerned. But we looked at everything, the resilience of the community, and all of the departments in general, how are they doing in our minds were mentioned. So we look at the whole view.
I would give a really good example that you brought to the board that aligned with our strategic plan, but I would say Concord got in the way, and that is that in our last meeting, we looked at the C-PACER program. The C-PACER program has to do with how loans can be constituted for solar utilities on a commercial project. The big discussion for us at the table was, a lot of it was centered around the record keeping and the requirements that interestingly got pushed back on the town. And the question, of course, is why is the town the gatekeeper and holder of the records? But I think Tracy brought this really important discussion that absolutely aligned with something that we felt in our strategic plan we should be looking at. You know, it's not that we're never going to do it, it's that we're asking deeper questions. And I think this is the kind of thing out of the strategic plan where we say it aligns with something we should look at, we can do our evaluation, and we can keep going through these processes.
Dave, did you have a comment?
Yeah, it sounds like a great consensus building process, but stepping back a little bit, were there any individual outlier issues that one or more of you brought to the table that did not join that consensus?
No. There were no outlier issues that we didn't discuss and either agreed to continue with or not discuss. But all the outlier issues were well discussed and generally were agreed to by all of us as important strategic priorities.
And I would say, because you're looking at such a high level, some of the discussion might be whether you're looking down a little lower, right? So we might be talking about like what kinds of development might we want to ask our department heads to be supporting, right? So, you know, I'm just going to say bakery, that's not, as an example. Bakery is too low level, right? So do we go back up a level? But you have those general, and then you bring it back up to the level the strategic plan needs to be at. So, you know, obviously we looked at the master plan and made sure we align with the master plan and referred back to it. I think we had some of those discussions and we did more configuration, I'd say, around what level we were at than I feel we didn't disagree at all. We did a lot of work around making sure that it was very clear to align with the master plan and it was easy for our department heads and our leaders to use. And I say easy, it's very long, but it's simple.
I think you have an excellent product. I was very pleased with it. I have two suggestions. One is innovation and creativity to me are not synonymous necessarily. And sometimes, particularly with what Concord's dishing out, creativity is going to be most important. And the innovation of something you already have, doing it differently or whatever, that's a creativity of sorts. But somewhere in there, and I think it's on pages 17, 18, 19, in that area, when you're kind of getting into that. If you could bring that out, because I think we're beginning to build a confidence in a lot of citizens to offer suggestions and help. And often, you know, no consultant fee or expense to us. And they've saved us money or made life better for a lot of people. So I would figure, because we all come at it and hear different things for the same words, I don't know, you know, if I'm making sense, but I feel like if somewhere in there you can kind of tweak and get the word creative something, that might also help us get that interchange going with citizens and enable them or empower them to offer their expertise. And my other one is, because the downtown is getting some more businesses, we're feeling a parking crunch. And Ed and I had a discussion a few years ago, and we disagree respectfully. I feel that when a new business comes in, they do need to provide their own parking. They need to provide their own parking. And you don't say, well, people will figure it out. Now, the walkability addresses some of that. And I get that. But I can tell you, for instance, for the Community Lutheran Church, our parking lot seldom has no cars in it anymore. So if I want to go over and trim and mow, when am I going to do that and not hit somebody's car with a stick or a stone inadvertently? And we put up signs when we're going to have an event, if you can remember, saying, you know, so people won't get blocked in. George's has the same problem, and I just want to call your attention to the fact, you know, he put up the sign, but it feels almost unfriendly for him to, he pays taxes on that. And the thing that occurred to me during the winter was, okay, so somebody from the brewery or Carpenter's Cup or whatever parks there, but they fall on his property. Those other businesses aren't liable. He is. And so I think so we don't pit people, you know, abutting neighbors or businesses against each other. We don't want them in an antagonistic relationship. We want them in a cooperative one, that we've got to require a little more parking when we can make it happen. You know what I'm saying? Because somebody called the church today, I'm talking to them there, they wanted to know if they could list our lot as a parking area. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, now we have a funeral, what do? We don't know who to contact, you don't know who's gonna be, and you don't want people blocked in and feeling like, you know, like when we do the yard sale, that parking space is really full. And so if you went fishing, you might or might not get out efficiently. So I think we just need to be cognizant of that, and emphasize the walkability, but also don't forget we have a parking issue for the businesses we have.
I think we have questions or comments online. Anyone? No?
Okay.
Well, I've had to park at the Whitney Hall before and walk downtown.
Yeah.
You have
one question or comment. There are a lot of different strategic priorities in here, and some of them are quite broad. And I would like some help with the cases where the application of the priorities is not clear to the specific question at hand. So consider Laramie Farms, for example. I'm sure a lot of people would say this is a real problem for preserving the rural character and the picturesque quaint town feeling. Some people would say, what do you mean? I don't see any problem. Some people would say this is going to make a really big difference on diverse housing opportunities. How do we balance all these different things when it comes down to a specific case? I'd love it if you'd give a numerical priority to every one of your strategic priorities. I don't think that's really possible, but can you help sharpen it at all when you've got conflicting data?
I'm not sure it's a matter of conflicting data, it's a matter of what people think about the data.
Yeah.
So I think...
And that's not our role to say, this data is more important than that data. This is why we have a lot of elected officials in this town, right?
Well, I think
and those people are going to make decisions.
We had some really good discussions. I think there are very different feelings within our board about, you know, development in general and what do we want. So like, if you ever ask me what I want for Enfield, I'm gonna be like, pharmacy, right? Like I will say pharmacy every single time is my top priority, right? I am so sick of not having a pharmacy, which not everybody is gonna have as their top priority. And so I think you can't get down to that minutia, like you can't call out a project like Laramie Farms, but what you can say on a higher level is we prioritize following the master plan and preserving the downtown space, developing on water and sewer like the master plan said. So we have been clear on those pieces and we're leaving the minutia to the planning board, and in some cases to zoning as they redevelop things, and zoning goes out to the voters. So it's very complex. I think you could come ask us but you're going to get a differing opinion on a much lower level because that's a lower level. We really deal with very high level policy.
You might say more about what you mean by the good of development. Is it to increase the tax base? Is it to bring in more young families so that schools stay healthy?
All of the above.
Yeah.
I think it's more, and this is a hard thing with municipalities because we cover so many areas that, you know, we can't just pigeonhole every little thing, but it's a really good guide for discussion. And then we have to look at other things. We have a strategic plan, we have a master plan that really covers more of that. It's a land use document, more than the strategic plan, which is an organizational framework. But like Alice pointed out, we had a CPACER program, which energy efficiency and getting, you know, the case I made was we were asking that, you know, the town get in a place where we're maybe less reliant on the grid and we're more energy sustainability. And then the CPACER program comes and it says, well, why wouldn't we want that for our businesses? If that's what we want to do, why don't we want that? But then another one of our priorities is delivering exceptional municipal services. And we say, well, if we're taking staff time to administer a state program, it's taking away time that we could be using on other services. So now we have to have that strategic discussion of, you know, in this case, which one of these is more important? And it may be different on every single project, but it frames the discussion that you can have. The other thing that I preach is just because it's not in our strategic plan doesn't mean we can't do it. But I think that needs to be a lot more pointed and a good discussion of, this isn't really what we were thinking, but is this a great opportunity? Is this something we need to take advantage of? And, you know, will we have another opportunity in the future? Will we not? I mean, there's just so many things to talk about, but it needs to be very deliberate at that point. So, you know, it's really just a framework to work within and to look at these different things as they come along and say, where do they fit in? Where do they conflict? And then you have to do, like you do every decision, what's the pros and cons and what's the best thing for the town right now? Go ahead, Dave.
One thing that that occurred to me is that affordability is something that's been discussed in many venues, and including this committee and the select board and many others in the past several years. And it's not explicitly put into the priorities in what I saw. Now, I may have missed it, but I would encourage that some of that, particularly for workforce and fixed income people, of which there's a substantial group in this community, should be addressed explicitly. Thank you.
From a development standpoint, are you talking on development to have workforce housing?
I think overall, how does it fit into development? How does it fit into other things? How does it fit into the overall tax rate? I
think from a tax rate spending standpoint, how much we're going to spend on projects, I think they covered that a lot in there's a whole section on fiscal responsibility. It doesn't necessarily use the word affordability, and like Amanda talked about, there's a real fine balance there all the time between what services do we provide, how much service do we provide, what's affordable, what's not affordable. I know we have that discussion at this table every single year as we go through the budget of, just where's that balance? And I think we do a really good job trying to keep that down. I know we've had a couple years with the buildings and some of those things where we've had higher tax increases than any of us would want, but
I don't know if this is an annual process or every 3 year, 5 year, whatever, but it's, at some point, it seems like it should be a little bit higher priority in the document.
Well, I think using the term affordability is kind of affordability is different. It could be everybody at this table. So fiscally responsible, I think, is where you can balance needs versus wants and what does the community want. When you start throwing out affordability, well, that's a lot different between somebody who, it's different for, it could be everybody at this table.
It's an important discussion for the ongoing.
But there's no definition to it. You're trying to pin something on a note.
There's not a definition for sustainability either.
But there is for fiscal responsible.
I think I like to look at things as a value proposition, right? Is the money I'm willing to invest going to generate some kind of value. It could be fiscal value, it could be some kind of opportunity for growth, it could be some kind of service. So I'm more interested in the fiscally responsible approach of using these value propositions. When they talk about affordable housing now, and you look at a house, they're talking about houses that are like 400 and 500, what is it, 450? Yeah, so I think $200,000 is an affordable home, I'm not gonna lie, right? So who cares about my opinion, because according to the rest of the world, I'm wrong. And so I don't think we can go at it from what does Kate think is affordable today, or what does Dave think is affordable. I think we have to look at all the value proposition pieces and look at the components and be really responsible about asking ourselves, why are we paying for this? What are we getting for value?
And
And we as a
everything that we,
town, we do not build houses.
no, but we do spend a lot of
That's the
money.
bottom line.
We do spend a lot of money, and that comes out of people's pockets.
But it's in here, Dave, right on page 5, budget, CIP, staffing, operations, align resources to support strategic initiatives and department goals. That's the crux of where the bucks go. And that's at the high level of this. We're not getting down to the line item. Because we have to look at the big picture and the balance of everything. And then revisiting it, this document says we're gonna revisit every year. Selectmen are gonna have, measurable goals that they can analyze.
And I think that a strategic plan is a living guideline. And the way that you guys have done it so that it meshes with the master plan, so it gives, but as a member of the budget committee, it's extremely helpful because now I can see what are the priorities, what are we looking at, what do we need to look at, and we know that you guys are gonna revisit it frequently, so that it's not just saying, this is your strategic plan for the next 10 years, this is what we're gonna go, this is where Enfield is heading. It's like, we don't know.
We've never had a list of budget priorities, to my knowledge, before.
We've had some bulleted, very
Yeah.
basic, but not like this. Yeah, I've definitely brought you a bulleted list before, but nothing like this, nothing robust like this in my time.
And this definitely, because it's a working document, it's left room for when something comes up, either that needs to be added to it or removed from it or, adjusted. And it can't be hard and fast, it can't be black and white, because it's not the way we all live, as a collective group.
I like to use the extreme example of somebody comes to me as a select board member and is like, Kate, I think we should build a roller coaster as a town operation. And I'm like, friends, that is not within anywhere in our strategic plan. Now, if you come to me and say, I would like to upgrade the sandbox, I'm like, ooh, that goes under recreation. You should talk to our recreation director. So it's a really great way to guide and have a nice conversation with people. And it's not, Kate says don't do this. It's, these are our guidelines. And I'm happy if you think they're wrong to have you talk to somebody. But I think it's a great way to direct people to I'm going to say reasonableness. I think big ideas are fun. I mean, who doesn't want a roller coaster? But do I want to pay for it? Absolutely not. And I don't want to ride it either.
Well, and I think it's nicely laid out, the levels, like, it's so general to begin with, and then it slowly works down.
Is there something? I just want to say, I think it's good that we met like this so that we are starting out this budgeting season on the same mindset. And we talked it over and have that feeling. Is there a comment up here now? Dan?
Yeah, Shirley, thank you. First of all, I think the strategic plan is extremely well done, and thanks to Ed and the select board. I really like it a lot. I have some minor comments, but nothing that's worth getting into here. I'll take them offline. But Shirley, I have more questions related to the select board budget goals and priorities. Have we now transitioned to that, or do we want to introduce those first?
Yeah, let's do that.
That's this.
That's what we were just having.
You were sneaking your way forward.
It's moving us forward.
So I don't know how we want to get started, if you guys want to talk about your priorities. I took the first stab at this document, and really what I did was pulled a lot of this right out of the strategic plan and the discussions that we had in that retreat. and then took it to the select board for review and discussion. We discussed it at a couple different meetings, and I guess I can turn it over to the select board to talk about kind of their thoughts on the budget priorities.
Just the page. So as Ed has said, I think what he's written is a digestion of the strategic plan and tries to give it a little more specificity. You know, for example, he mentions the compensation to the employee package as being crucial to the process, and it is, and that's just one item. So this document is intended to establish specifically some of the priorities which we have seen as the select board, and at the top, perhaps call it a mission statement, if you will, maintain high-quality municipal services. That's rock, right there. And if that can be a starting point, then that's a starting point.
Mhm. Yeah, those are big ticket items, covers a lot of ground, certainly gives us a sense of direction. And there's some items of specificity there too, right?
There are.
Oak Grove Street.
Yes. I try to mention that every meeting I'm at.
And there are some things that are, you know, we've known we have challenged with for a while that are becoming very evident it's going to be a near-term problem.
Right.
And John has done a great job naming that big near-term problem that could be very expensive. Eric did a nice job reminding us about TIF. And the importance of, you know, I have been a big proponent of either we're going to use TIF and we're going to use it correctly, or I'm not going to tell you to ever do it again. So I think we need to make some of those important decisions, and so we've named them, and we've named the work we have to do, and we've named the work that we need your help doing too.
I think another thing to discuss, purposefully, the select board moved undesignated fund balance up right under financial stability. These aren't in any actual order, but they wanted those together. Our fund balance is dipping closer and closer to that 8%. So we need to make sure not only that we're looking at that, and I'm going to say not using undesignated fund balance unless it's absolutely necessary, but we also need to build a budget that we know is going to put enough money back into undesignated fund to continue moving that forward. As you heard the school district say, they're allowed to carry over $650,000. So all the other stuff, their whole budget falls into our undesignated fund balance equation, because we have to pay that school bill no matter what happens. So the county, the state, that it all falls into our undesignated fund balance. So if the school budget goes up a little, if the county goes up, which they're proposing, that means our percentage or the amount of money we need to have to meet that percentage is going up. And if we're not pushing 3 to 5% out of the back end of our budget, we're falling backwards. So we need to make sure that we're preparing for that.
And one example that I've been going through as we talk through these is if we look at our last 3 town meeting presentations, the split of our surplus between personnel costs and operating costs. If you back out our personnel costs, we actually were over budget on our operating costs each of the last 3 years. So 3 years ago, 2023, we were 50,000 over. 2024, we were 39,000 over, and then last year we were almost 19,000 over. So we've been under budgeting a little bit on operating costs, which is a normal thing, right? Like we had real big deficits, well now 10, 15 years ago. You know, we were solving that. We're trying to bring that curve over and find the right level. We overshot a little bit, and now there'll be a little ringing. This is how systems work. But I just wanted to bring that up because as we look at financial stability, doing the undesignated fund where we want it to be, and keeping our high quality services, you know, we need to make sure we're getting those operating costs at the right level.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do we know, and this is going to throw a whole other ring into this, but do we know out of the operating cost that was over budget, how much of that was spent due to knowing that we were going to be Does that make sense? So for instance, I can only go back off my experience.
I don't know the answer.
Sometimes I spend a little more money because I knew I had an open spot, but I knew it'd save me money next year. And so it would show my operating costs maybe over a little bit.
And I don't know.
That's not fair
It
account.
came out of personnel costs.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it didn't come out of personnel costs.
It would have.
It would have.
It would have.
And a
Right,
good
wouldn't have spent the
example was
money if we
last
spent
year.
all the personnel money.
I mean, last year's, we spent
Yeah.
$20,000 on speed signs for Crystal Lake Road and a couple extras that we did not budget for, and we were 19,000 over. So we were pretty close on our operating budget there, but I do think it's important that we're not shaving our operation budget so thin and relying on that, because it could get us in trouble.
And I will, again, just going off my previous trip, last year, when I walked out of here when the budget committee was done, on day one of the budget, I was already worried about the budget. We had raised the operating part, not the personnel part, so thin that it was like,
Yeah.
And when
And we're gonna do everything we can to be fully staffed.
Right.
That's
And I
one of
think
our goals.
Our department heads have done a really good job of being responsible within their budget. So, and they will when they can make, I would say, a value proposition type purchase, that maybe we make it this year instead of next year. They've done some of that when they have some latitude, but I think it's really important that we not cut it so slim that when community members, like the Crystal Lake folks, come to us with a very important question, we can listen to them and then we can make a decision that was a safety-based decision. Because I think if we cut too close, then we say, well, we know you have a safety issue, but we don't have any money. And I don't want to get into a spot where we have to say that to our residents. Like, too bad, so sad, you're just gonna get run over.
And if you had a major event that's like, certainly road washouts and things like that are very expensive, then you wouldn't have even been able to do it then.
No.
So that's cutting it so close, it's like cutting your nose off to spite your face.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's important to remember, because we talk a lot about fund balance. That's what we have fund balance for. We can do that. And yes, it is that, but we can't spend fund balance. That has to go to town meeting. So if we have something happen like that mid-year, we can't just go dip out of fund balance and take that and make it happen. I mean, we could have a special town meeting, which costs more money to do. But I think we just need to budget appropriately. I think we've been doing that. Like Roy said, this is probably the first year in a long time where before the budget was approved, I was waking up at night and sweating a little bit that we're not gonna make this, and luckily some things have happened, but we've had some other things happen on the other side that we'll talk about. We had some continual vandalization at Hughes Park, the community building. So we put a camera system in there, which is about $7,500 that was unbudgeted, that we have to find somewhere else. Luckily, we had some personnel, we had some spaces, so we were able to manage it in the budget, but we were at a spot where it was really, really nerve-wracking for the first little while, and we're trending still pretty close to on budget, but we'll get into that more next meeting. But
Approximately how much does it cost if you have to have an extra town meeting?
How much is that?
I don't know, but it's not cheap.
So
I can get you a number of what we pay
I've done a little
now,
work
but-
on that in the past, because I've helped a town and the school district do that. So it depends on what you have to do. If you have to petition the Supreme Court filings get like special printouts, they have to be bound in an exact way, and you have to pay somebody from the office to sit in the photocopy place and watch them while they do the pages. And then you pay them to individually check the pages before you turn them in, and then you pay somebody to drive to Concord. So it could be something like that, or it could be a more simple filing. It really depends on what you have to do and when. But as soon as you touch a lawyer for an hour, you're looking at hundreds, and those go really fast. So I would not suggest trying it out as your fallback plan.
You gotta hire the ballot clerks.
Oh, God, yeah, that's true.
Dan?
Yep, thanks, Shirley. Can the select board please speak to an increase in our tax rate that you feel is tolerable in 2027? Curious as to just your thinking there.
I don't think that's something, I don't have a number in mind. I want to completely focus on services and needs.
Yeah.
And in order to talk about tax rate specifically, we'd have to know what all of our other revenue is going to be as well.
Yeah.
I do have serious
Okay,
concerns
so
that
let's,
your budget
let's,
is covered.
so, well, hang on, let's ask us a different way. So would you rather see that all of these priorities be achieved with a 10% increase in taxes, or that 3/4 of the priorities be achieved with like a 3.7% annual inflation rate in taxes?
I would view it as a budget, an increase in the budget, not an increase in taxes. I think that's a very important distinction. We're talking about the budget, not about the individual tax rate, which is also dependent on all the revenues we get and a lot of huge number of other factors that go into that calculation. I stay in the same spot I've been the last few years, where I think the budget should be basically tracking inflation. We need to keep up. We need to keep up with our staff costs, with the costs of materials, with the cost of whatever roads cost these days. And a lot of those are above CPI. Like roads are certainly above CPI right now. So I would like to see us maintain what we have and continue going. And then one thing that I will remind everybody here is we have 2 new buildings. The warranties are up in 2027. So we need to start budgeting for maintenance immediately so that we don't do what we did before and not maintain our brand new wonderful facilities.
Eric, that's helpful. And I'm taking away from what you said was be thinking of increase in budget over the previous year and be thinking somewhere in the rate of inflation versus your tax rate. Is that what? Did I hear that correctly? Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Tax rate's so just a much more complicated, thing that we can't really. That's not something we can dial in as part of the budget process.
Thank you. Any other thoughts from other members of the select board?
I always look at things in terms of CPI and ask the why questions. So Eric very wisely brought up, roads in particular have increased. So when we're looking and we see a substantial increase, we should be saying why on each of these lines. But we should also be looking at decreases, like why is this significantly lower? And on revenues, like last year, revenues were budgeted, they were vastly over budgeted. And so we should be asking ourselves, like, was it wise what we did? The answer is no, we did not budget revenues correctly.
That's what I just wanted to ask. Is there any prediction now of any revenues that will be going up or down?
We will get those to you when we present the revenue budget and the documentation of why we think they will be where they are. We can have the discussion again here. I think we had a great discussion last year of, while we were really trying to build fund balance, do some of those things, we were being ultra conservative on our revenues, which was leading to a little bit of a, the tax rate was much lower than we were presenting at town meeting. I think we had a great meeting here. We should have that philosophical discussion, but maybe trying to trend a lot closer to what we actually think we're going to get, so we know what it is, and then we can make that purposeful decision if we want to be a little conservative or not. But we'll get you the numbers of what we think are truly right where we're going to be without being ultra conservative, and why we're going to be there.
So I got a great example of why you don't just follow CPI and this and that, and I just wanted to look it up real quick. So the increase of asphalt from last year to this year was 6.6 to 7%. Yeah.
And CPI, we'll be talking about this, it's 3.7 July to July Boston metric.
So when you just come out with CPI and say we got to follow, you tie yourself to a post, because some stuff went up a lot less.
And we know there are other things that are going to go up like that too.
Well, and we talked about it last year, salt went up 30%. We're not gonna tie our salt budget at a 3.7% increase.
Fuel has gone up almost 25%.
And right now, our revenue side, it's looking like less people are buying themselves a new car. And if you've gone to buy a new car recently, you're like, never mind. I'll just Flintstone it at this point because it's terrible. So I think, there's some major economic factors that are factoring into our revenue side. Could we anticipate them? Not exactly. Could we have been more conservative about some of those numbers? Because they've gone up. And so we use the trend line. We're probably not going to hit our revenue target.
It's hard to simplify matters when you're living in complicated times. And we just got to remain flexible.
But we also have to present, because ultimately what we're presenting at town meeting is the tax rate. And so we can say we've kept the budget as tight as we possibly can. We've accurately anticipated revenues, but the tax is coming out of everybody's pocket at a certain level. And that's what they will see.
Yeah.
We can't present the tax rate, though. We can estimate, we can guesstimate, we can do our very best, and I think we can be responsible about it, but at the end of the day, you're never right on the tax
And what we
rate.
present is the budget.
We present the budget.
And I want to build off what a lot of other people have been saying, because I hesitate to tie myself to a cap or some number to aim for, because I believe in the process. So, I think the wisdom of the department heads, the wisdom of the budget committee, the wisdom of this 8-month-long process, or however long it is we've been working on it. 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. But, and I do believe that fiscal stewardship and responsibility is all throughout our strategic planning document here. But then I also hear from town employees and recent employees that the budget was so razor thin this past year that it was keeping them up at night. And that's not that is not the culture that I want in the town that is serving us. So that is, I don't know what the number is, but I understand the spirit of what I believe will be brought in front of us by this process.
Yeah, and Alice, if I could say one more thing, I don't disagree with things that are being said, but by the same token, I think we need to listen to the taxpayers and what keeps them up at night as well. And the idea of going to them with a tax increase of 20% would not fly. And we'd have to make some tough decisions. So I just wanted to hear from the select board, and this conversation has been great. Thank you. Your thinking behind that, and I think we're very well aligned. But just wanted to have a little.
And Dan, I'm glad to hear that your voice is on the budget committee, because as I said, you're part of this process as well.
Absolutely.
One of the biggest problem is that people want to see the taxes lower, but they don't want to give up any services.
That's right.
And
it's a balance.
Yeah.
Well, and the one thing I'd say, and I'm going to put Roy on the spot too, because he sees it a lot more than me, but since I've been here, the taxpayers of Enfield are very supportive if you can explain the why. This is what we need, this is the service we're trying to give you, and this is what the cost is.
And you
And
see the percentage
the
paid.
things that they voted down were either not explained very well, or it was like, yeah, we don't really need that. But
And you can see by the percentage you
The
pay right
taxpayers of
away
Enfield will let you know if they do agree with what was presented.
And I think they do a good job of that, and I think we honor it, and it's a good relationship between the folks who sit here at this table and do the work and the taxpayers in the feedback cycle. I think each year we learn something, we have good conversations. One of the things I've learned since the last evaluation is how hard it has been tax-wise for the folks who are living in mobile homes and houses that were previously the $150,000 and $200,000. Those homes are now $400,000 and $500,000. It is stunning, and those people did see their tax bill go up. I realize the folks on the lake, but they've made a major commitment and investment to something that's a lot, much more than basic. The folks in these basic homes saw this massive increase that had nothing to do with how this group budgeted and everything to do with how the state of New Hampshire requires we do taxation. And for those people, I really do feel, because Concord says you will tax them on the equivalent assessments of comparable sales, right? And so if you lived in a little camp with a dirt floor underneath your boards and it was $200,000 camp and your neighbor spent $500,000, you now live in a $400,000 to $500,000 camp, which is terrifying.
You see it all the time.
It's driven by the market.
yeah, we're seeing some of that though with our last reval saw that with the housing shortage. The market was going up a lot, but the middle, the $400,000, $500,000 homes, a lot of them went down in the taxes they paid. Their rate's the same, but their values stayed closer to the same. And the bottom end, went way up. I mean, we were selling mobile homes for $200,000.
There
That
are
was-
a lot
shouldn't
more
have happened.
for sale signs
There's
around
no
too.
direct correlation between your tax rate and the value of your home.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a common misconception as well. You think, oh, my value doubled, so my tax is gonna double. It doesn't work like that, so.
No, it's the piece of the pie.
Yeah,
That's what
we
we
have a lot
talk
of
about
pie
a lot. And when
discussions,
the
yeah.
piece of the pie got, when the lower houses' values went up faster than the rest of everybody else's, the pie shifted.
So,
So I'll just say from, sorry, from somebody who's, for 26 years, my job is to talk to the taxpayers. I love doing that. They respect the budget committee and the select board, and if you go back and you look back at town meeting, there's usually very little discussion about the budget itself. Some, but very little, because the budget committee and the select board put together a good presentation of the wants, the needs, and the whys. And as long as we continue to, do put that work in, it's not, I think it'll be the same as we see in the past at the polls where, we have that 98%, I guess you call it approval rating when the budget passes, that's your approval rating. And it's about getting information out. Like, was asked many, many times, and one of the first things some people throw out there is, well, we could save 600,000, just get rid of trash pickup. And I love my trash pickup, but a few years ago, we did the research, right? And I think, Dan, you were part of this and stuff like that, and it's about $25 a month to the taxpayers. Ask anybody who lives in Canaan, one of, a friend of mine now, she doesn't work for me, in Cortland, he lives in Lebanon, he pays $125 a month to have his trash picked up. So when you break it down and say, hey, you present it the right way, people go, wait a minute, I don't want to cut off my nose to spite my face, I'll save $25 on my tax bill, but pay $125. Those are the things that, it's about talking to our residents and what do you want? Because that's who we represent, right? We're not just representing ourselves, we represent all the residents of Enfield. What do you want? What are the services you want? And I think right now Enfield is in a really good place that people like the services that we're getting, and they want it to continue, and they don't want to, you got multiple ways to go. You can, and I'm not going to throw names of towns out there, but there are some towns there that they don't want anything to change, and that's great. You pay high taxes, and they accept that. I'm going to pay super high taxes on my house because I don't want things to change in town. I want you to say nice, quaint little community. You can go where we're going, which you try to find that balance, and then you can go the other way, which is let's cut back as much as we can for the tax rate, this and that, and then when everything starts breaking down, you can't hardly drive on your roads, you pay 3 times as much to try to catch up.
Well, I think we do. The show of confidence too is that how many times do we have anyone from the public here?
I think one of the things I really like, I'm not going to try to sell you on SB2 versus town meeting, but one of the things I really like in more recent years, in general, regardless of format, is that more people have said no. And I'm going to tell you, it's not because you're doing it bad. It is because we have made it more available to give us your true feedback. I find unanimous votes to be very challenging when you're in a large setting. Maybe at a table with us, a unanimous vote when you've been doing this work together, but when you're with hundreds of people, you should have no votes. And so I feel like we have also made it a point to say, tell us how you feel. And we listen to your no vote and we factor it in. And I'm good with it. Look, there's 10% and we're gonna always say no. You could be like, you're gonna win the lottery, I'm gonna give you $1 million, you'd be like, no, right? They're just gonna write no. So, but then, when you get into the 20 and 30%, I think that's very reasonable and it's good feedback and it's helpful. So I'm happy to see people's feedback, it's been helpful, and I would just, I'm hoping the public watches these. I think a lot of people have really good feedback they give individually to all of us. And I'd encourage you to have those conversations where you say, that's really interesting. Tell me what you would, if you were gonna give up something to save $5, right? Like, would you give up having the plow come 2 times during a storm? Because those are the kind of conversations you have to sit at this table.
And I think no votes sometimes are on one issue. They aren't unhappy with everything. There's one thing. So one of the things that has to be part of our discussion is what's happening on the state level. And Karen Leott Hill did an excellent presentation at the community center on what's happened. And our legislature is cutting revenues, and that those cuts are shifting expenses to town.
Right.
And that's the pinch we're feeling, and that's why we're feeling it. It's not because we're doing a bad job or whatever. So if your philosophy is to keep, your services, staff, and so on, and kind of keep up with the inflation thing, we have to be prepared to make more, spend more, because we're getting less from our state. And we've got to change that on the state level. We've got to put the pressure on and have different people there to get a balance there as well. Because it isn't something Enfield or Canaan or Hanover 11 is doing wrong. It's something that is being done to us. And we've got to keep that in the forefront of our mind. That's why having those goals and standards of excellent services, maintain those services, and so on, those have to be the basis of your decision. And then when you get all done, you can look at what you've got for a product and go, okay, now what are we going to do?
You're absolutely correct.
I think that's an excellent approach. It makes sense because there's a lot of intelligent people at this table who will put together a very good, honest plan. It's going to happen. I have full confidence in that. And it will be done in the best spirit of what it's supposed to be, as looking out for themselves and for the Enfield taxpayers. There's no question about that. If we get down to the point where we're unhappy with the result, having built it properly, then we will cross that bridge as we come to it, and we will find a way to move to the other side. But we need to build it properly, which starts with the strategic plan, which starts with the priorities. And if we do it properly, then we might come out with the right income that we can all live with, and that our taxpayers can hopefully live with. If not, when we get there, we'll continue to look at it, and we'll focus on those things that need to change in order to make it palatable for everyone.
Yep. No, I think there's some really good points there. I know, Dave, you've had a question on what are we going to do if we get a default budget, and I'm going to say right here in this meeting, we're not putting any planning into that. We're going to build a plan for a good budget, and the department heads will not answer that question because it's not their job. It's
Unfortunately, I knew
their
you were
job.
going to say that.
It's their job. It's not the department head's job at all to even put a thought.
We're the
into
bad
that.
guys.
Well,
We're going to cut services to do it, so
Of
we're going to
course.
have to say what
There's
service do we
anytime you
want
have
to
to
cut.
cut things because of your budget at home, because taxes have gone up too much and you don't have the income to cover it, you gotta cut something else.
Yeah.
But that's
You know,
their choice.
But that's their choice, and we'll make that decision after the vote, not now.
No, but I do think it'll be important to let people know as it comes down to the SB two, that and it's absolutely by no means a threat, but it is hey, here's the budget that we put together. If it goes to default budget, there will be a cut in services just because it's.
I mean,
As you properly pointed out, it is a case of good communication.
Yeah.
If we can explain the case for establishing the budget based on good science and good thought, then I believe that the taxpayers will support it.
Well, and there's a mandatory vote on a tax cap.
Yeah.
For
the school.
For the school.
Only for the school.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, it's something that we need to pay attention to, and we need to do, but I think it'd be a waste of staff time and town money to put a lot of thought and process into that right now. When you don't do that at home, you don't go, if I lost my job, what would I do?
But I do know what are my top priorities.
Yeah.
Which is what I was asking.
So do we.
Okay. Well, it's the specifics of that.
Yeah.
Some of them are prescribed
And
by
a
law.
lot of it's just gonna come down to, what is the budget we're putting forward? What is the default? What's the difference? How much do we have to make up? Last year there wasn't much, so we had a little bit of discussion that it was, maybe we can cut the free sand pile and a few of those small things that doesn't stop the plow from going twice. Saves a little bit of money, and we can move forward. But if it's a big gap, then it's gonna be a big service. It's gonna hurt.
And you're still on track to show us a default budget next week, or on the 10th, I mean?
Yeah, I'm planning to do that on the next meeting. We're pretty close to having that done.
Right.
We were putting in loan payments and stuff today, and we've pulled out the one-time project. So we're really close to that. we'll show some,
Excellent.
you know, fiscal plan where we're at right now, those types of things.
Excellent. Well, I thank you very much to the select board for this discussion and for all the work that went into the strategic planning process and the budget priorities. This is really, really helpful for us, I think, as a budget committee. We know we have some work to do now, and I think we've also we're looking for that balance, and we will find it. We will find it. So, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Schedule?
shall we move on to the
Schedule.
budget calendar change?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's really only one change. I just want to ask the budget committee if we can add the 24th back in. We had taken that out at our meeting. I think we've canceled the 8th one too, so it was the 2 around the 3rd. But Jim Taylor will be out of town on the 3rd, and he's a large portion of the budget. If we can add the 24th back in, we can present the DPW budgets to you that night. We could do the rest of the budgets on the 3rd, which would also help. I know there was a few people concerned about getting out too late on the 3rd. It would pretty much ensure that we'd be getting out about midday that day, and we'd stay on our schedule that we.
So
we had.
October 8th, you said?
No, the 8th.
It's the 3rd?
I-
20,
Did we have the 8th on there too? I thought we had taken that one
I
off.
thought, I wrote down no Ed Morse, but I
I'm not
was
gonna
under
be
the
here on the 8th.
understanding that we were canceling the meeting.
Well, that's up to you guys. I
Yeah,
guess
I-
I'm asking to add the 24th then.
I might be late, but I'll try. Tracy, can you?
Yes.
Okay, so one of us will be here. I'm coming from
I will be
further
here.
away.
I'll be in a different time zone, but I'll try.
oh,
And we'll record it.
okay. No public comments?
So I'm
Any-
taking that as a yes.
So you need that motion?
Yes.
Oh, you need a motion on that?
Yeah, we should have a motion.
Okay.
To add the 24th.
I will.
Do I hear a motion to,
So moved.
I make a motion to add the 24th meeting to the,
want a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
You have
Roll
to do
call.
Oh, roll call. Dan?
Aye.
Jane, aye.
Shirley, aye.
Dave, aye.
Kate, aye.
Roy, aye.
Nancy, aye.
Jill, aye.
Tina, aye.
Jim Pickett. I can't be there, so I'm not sure how I should vote, but it's fine with me if you go ahead.
That's nice.
That's very nice.
And then before you adjourn, I just wanted to, probably should have did it in the beginning of the meeting, but I wanted to formally introduce, this is Nancy Bates, our new Finance Director, Assistant Town Manager. She has a long resume that she can go through, but she comes to us most recently from Claremont, where she served as Finance Director and City Manager
Read
for a
about
while.
Leaving.
Welcome.
Thank
you.
She's
Very glad to
been
be here.
great to have around the office.
Alice, would you adjourn us?
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Motion to adjourn the select board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to echo
Aye.
a question from last year that when we get the financial packets with all the spreadsheet numbers, that they be given at least 48 hours in advance.
Yeah, we're gonna try to get those, or we've said we'd get those on Monday for the Thursday meeting.
Great, thank you.
Okay, motion to adjourn the budget committee?
So moved.
You have-
Second.
I moved to a budget.
Okay, we don't have to do it.
Yeah.
But I think they're all.
Yeah.
Move,
We
Shirley.
don't actually have to do a
Call for
You don't have to do it.
vote on that.
But, Ed, do you think we could send out a updated copy maybe to make sure we're all
Oh, that would
of
be
the
good.
calendar?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
That was one of
Yeah,
those things that didn't have.
It's
Yeah.
saying to